The rest of today's news.
That will be an interesting interview, no doubt. Bianca, thanks so much. Well, I want to go to the latest in the FBI investigation into sexual assault allegations against U.S. Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh. President Trump is speaking out about it yet again, talking to reporters on the White House lawn just a short time ago, saying it would be unacceptable if Kavanaugh lied during his testimony and that this is a scary time for young men.
It's a tough thing going on. If you can be an exemplary person for 35 years and then somebody comes and they say you did this or that, and they give three witnesses, and the three witnesses at this point do not corroborate what she was saying, it's a very scary situation where you're guilty until proven innocent. My whole life I've heard you're innocent until proven guilty. But now you're guilty until proven innocent. That is a very, very difficult standard. Say it?
What do you say to young men in America?
Well, I say that it's a very scary time for young men in America when you can be guilty of something that you may not be guilty of.
President Trump, there. Well, meantime, a lawyer for Mark Judge says the FBI has completed its interview with Kavanaugh's former classmate. And during testimony before a Senate panel last week, Christine Blasey Ford said Judge was in the room when Kavanaugh allegedly sexually assaulted her in the 80s when they were teenagers. Kavanaugh and Judge have both denied the allegations. Ford's legal team tells CNN the FBI has not contacted her yet. Well, let's get more from Washington on all of this. Joining us from the White House is our reporter Jeremy Diamond. Well, we just heard again, Jeremy, from the president again supporting Kavanaugh, but the clock is ticking on this FBI investigation. Less than a week to go, and we know now that the scope is much broader, and former classmates, including one that says Kavanaugh was in a bar fight, are being interviewed by the FBI.
That's right. And Chad Ludington is that classmate from Yale who first raised these allegations about Kavanaugh's drinking in college. And what he has said so far is that he doesn't feel like the drinking itself should be disqualifying for Kavanaugh to be able to be confirmed to the Supreme Court. What he has said is that he believes Kavanaugh was untruthful before Congress when he was asked about his drinking, and that in and of itself should be disqualifying. Listen to what he said at a press conference just yesterday.
I have direct, repeated knowledge about Brett's drinking and his disposition while drunk. And I do believe that Brett's actions as a 53-year-old federal judge matter. If he lied about his past actions on national television, and more especially while speaking under oath in front of the United States Senate, I believe those lies should have consequences. I have seen Brett drunk to the point he could easily be passed out.
And so you hear it there from Brett Kavanaugh's Yale classmate describing his drinking, describing his concerns about Kavanaugh's testimony before Congress. Now, remember, Kavanaugh did say that there were times when he had perhaps too many beers, but he was evasive when he was asked about his drinking in high school and in college, and he denied having ever blacked out from drinking. When he was asked if he had passed out ever from drinking, he said simply that he had not passed out, but that he had fallen asleep from drinking. All of this goes back to the question of whether the sexual assault that Christine Blasey Ford alleged Kavanaugh committed against her, whether Kavanaugh might perhaps not recall that, because Christine Blasey Ford did describe Kavanaugh as stumbling drunk during those allegations that she said took place some 30-odd years ago.
And of course, Jeremy, we're already seeing ramifications from this. Before the FBI have completed their investigation, we know the Harvard Law School say that Kavanaugh will not be teaching in January, of course, called the Supreme Court, which he's done so for about the past decade. So when you hear from classmates who say he lied during the testimony, and you hear from others, the women who have put together that commercial saying, "I stand with Brett," how does the FBI weigh up those conflicting statements, and how do the senators make a decision? And will the Democrats ever be satisfied with a week-long investigation?
Well, you know, as it relates to Brett Kavanaugh's class at Harvard, you know, he had previously said that if he were to be confirmed, he hoped to continue to coach girls basketball, for example, and also to continue to teach this class at Harvard, which he has taught for several years now. Now he's not going to be able to do that in the wake of all of these allegations, even if he is confirmed to the Supreme Court. But it does, as you said, raise the questions of how much the FBI is actually going to be able to uncover and whether it's going to be able to quell any of these doubts about Kavanaugh's character, or to the contrary, confirm these allegations that have taken place. You know, it's been stated and restated multiple times that the FBI doesn't draw any conclusions. It's simply going to interview witnesses that it can interview with regard to several of these allegations, and it's going to submit those into Brett Kavanaugh's background investigation file to the White House counsel's office and to the Senate Judiciary Committee, and ultimately to all members of the Senate who want to review that supplemental investigation. But it is very possible that the FBI concludes this investigation, and we are no closer, whether Democrats or Republicans, to having any more certainty, and that perhaps these two sides will remain ever divided. But the question is, how will that FBI supplemental investigation affect the votes of those key Republican senators, Jeff Flake, Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, who have requested this supplemental FBI investigation? And until we know what's in that, we won't be able to make that judgment. But even when that document is produced to the Senate, questions may still be lingering. Linda?
Absolutely, and that document is meant to be produced. That FBI probe is meant to be finalized by Friday. And we've heard today from the Majority Leader McConnell saying that a vote will happen this week. So you have to wonder if the senators will have enough time to properly review that if it comes down moments before they're due to vote.
Right. Well, look, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell is somebody who is a practiced political player. He's pragmatic, and he knows that he's not going to be able to actually move this to the floor for a vote if he doesn't have the votes, or at least he won't do that to face that potential embarrassment of a failed vote to confirm Brett Kavanaugh. I think he would sooner push the White House to withdraw Kavanaugh's nomination if it became clear it wasn't going to pass. So listen, again, those three senators that I mentioned earlier hold all of the cards right now. They hold the cards as far as whether Mitch McConnell brings this vote to the floor. Yes, they did talk about a week-long delay for the FBI to complete its work, but so far those three senators have held out on how they would react and what they would urge the Majority Leader to do if the FBI says, look, we need more time. We have not yet completed this investigation.
All right, Jeremy Diamond, good to have you with us from the White House. Thank you so much. Well, still to come tonight, people affected by the earthquake and tsunami in Indonesia are in urgent need of food, water and medical supplies. The Red Cross says the situation is nightmarish. We're going to take you to the rescue operations next. Also, the U.S. First Lady leaves Washington behind for her first major solo trip, what Melania Trump hopes to accomplish in Africa as she begins a 4-nation tour.